Welcome again to Power Encounter. I'm Cyndi Biondi, and my special guest today is Chad McComas from Hope Village, Rogue Retreat, Set Free Ministries. I'm so excited about having you here. For those of you who were here for our other segment, it's so fun talking with Chad because they truly, he and his team of volunteers in Southern Oregon are making a huge difference, a huge transformation in some of our really poorest parts of our poorest community. So I'm really excited to have you here, Chad.
Such an honor to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We got a lot to talk about.
We do. Boy, we could probably do 5 or 6 more segments on this, but we've been talking about the Set Free Ministries and how you got started with the Set Free. This is the Chad, if you've seen his name in the paper. This is Chad McComas, who has started the Hope Village for the homeless, Rogue Retreat for recovering addicts and those folks who find themselves without homes. The Kelly Shelter, which is the emergency shelter at night, these cold nights. Something that I was talking with you about 2 years ago is up and running. Wow. And there's Heather Haven, and isn't there like Howard's Haven or
Harold's Haven?
Harold.
You know, God just leads one thing, leads to another. Isn't that how God works?
It absolutely does, because you know, there's a song that says, "Break my heart for what breaks yours."
Oh yeah.
And I love that song because as we follow him, then his concerns become our concerns. We love what he loves, and we mourn for what he mourns for as well. And I know that it breaks his heart when people are homeless and helpless and addicted and lonely. And people don't realize that all of these folks have a story. So often, I remember going into one of the food pantries, and I was going there to set up to start helping, and all of these young men, like 19, 18, 20, 21, come in there looking for sleeping bags. I'm looking at them, and I can see the ravages of desperation and sorrow on their faces, and they're so young. Oh, I just want to take them all home, give them a shower, and get them a job. Which, of course, I did actually.
How big a house do you have?
Another big house. And I know there are many others who feel that way as we look about our community and see some of the down and out folks and how that segment of the society in Southern Oregon has been growing. It's truly heartbreaking.
It is. And there's a side of some people that says, well, they want to be homeless. They've created this for themselves. They should just pick themselves up by their bootstraps. I don't think the average person understands that once you get to when you become homeless, you can't fix it yourself. Right. I always kind of say it's like falling into a well. Now, I could have been stupid and been hanging on the edge too long or done something that I fell into that well. But once I'm in there, you can yell down all day long and get yourself out. I can't. I've got to have a hand up to get out of that well. And I think as Christians, we have to look at the homeless people and say, you know, it doesn't matter how they got there. It's our job to give them a hand up. I mean, God talks about the widows and the orphans and the strangers and the poor, and those are the 4 groups he always wants us to be concerned about.
That's right.
It's because they can't take care of themselves.
One of the
Christians have to step in.
We do, and we're really the whole Bible. I mean, the Bible says that true religion is taking care of the orphans and the widows, and caring for those who need food and those who need clothing. Even visiting the prisoners in prison. I mean, you know, when you talk about what Jesus had to say, he said, "I don't know you if you're not loving the way I love."
That's exactly
You know,
right.
when you know the Lord. As a believer and a Christian, we find out that Jesus loves us. We find out that he died for us. Find out that he gave his whole life for us, and that he now sits at the right hand of God, interceding for us and asking us to be his hands and feet. When you begin to realize that, and you begin to, he says he comes into you and he lives in you, and his love begins to permeate you. You can't go past someone with needs or sorrows and not be affected if his love is in your heart.
But you don't know what to do.
That's so true.
And the
Oh,
average
my
Christian,
sakes, it's
they'll
true.
see somebody panhandling and they'll say, you know, I bet he's just going to use it for alcohol, or she's just going to use it for drugs. I don't want to do that, but I want to do something.
Yes.
So we'll run into Taco Bell and buy him a little taco or something and hand it to him, which is okay. That's a good thing to do. But we got to do more, I think, as Christians. We got to do more organized and pull our resources together. I think the more we do that, God just explodes it.
He does.
You know, we were talking in our last segment about we just give away so much food all the time and so much things that people give us, and it just keeps coming. You know, if we ever start doing this, holding on to it and try to hoard it, God stops the flow.
Can you tell us about the God's Food Pantry too? I know we talked about this last segment, but not everyone gets to see the first segment. How did that start? Because it's such a cool story.
It is a cool story. We had a single mom of 5 kids. She had nothing. I mean, she was living on subsidized.
And you said we, is that your church fellowship?
Right. We had just started back in 1997, and we were trying to figure out what we were here for, what we were supposed to do. And this lady walks in one day and has about 2 or 3 bags of groceries, says, I want to tithe my food stamps. That's what we called it those days, food stamps, right? And I thought, wow, what am I going to do with this? But she couldn't give any money, but she could give that.
Right.
So she did. And I thought, well, God, I don't know what to do with this. So I put it up in a little cupboard we had there in the little office. The next day somebody walks in and says, you got any food? And I thought, oh, okay, God, I'm not real sharp, but I can figure that one out. Right. She brought the food, I'm supposed to give it out. So we gave it out. And that's what started God's Food Pantry, came out of pantry. Today, we're the largest food pantry in Jackson County.
Is amazing.
So we serve more people than any other pantry.
And how many families did you say?
How did we get, well, last Friday, we did 115 families. And we're usually somewhere between 70 to 100 families every week.
That's
every
huge.
week.
Here's just a lot of families. I've worked in these pantries.
How do you feed? We get a truckload of food every week that comes in. Now, how do we do that? How do we afford that? I mean, I could spend all day talking about that, but it's just following God's principles.
Right.
Do what you see Him doing.
Right.
Step in, and then He'll provide the resources. And I found that with our Rogue Retreat. We started in 1998 with about 4 people around a table like this saying we want to do something. Today, my organization, God's organization that we've created, has a $1 million budget every year. You know, how did we get there?
Right.
We got there by being faithful, by taking the next right step.
With the little things.
Yeah, you just have to. You know, God says if you're faithful with a little, He'll give you much. And I really believe that.
Amen.
I absolutely believe that. But that doesn't mean you don't go through tough times. And you know, I remember the story of the disciples in the boat going across the Sea of Galilee, right? And the storm comes up. Now they're going from point A to point B. Jesus has a plan. He knows what He's going to do over here. In fact, He went over and healed some demonic guys. Remember that story?
Oh, boy.
But in the middle, when the storm's raging and it looks like you're going to die, Jesus is sleeping.
Right.
You know, the disciples are freaking out. That's what I do so often, freak out. And Jesus says, I'm with you. What's your problem?
Right.
You know, I know where I'm taking you. Just take a nap. We'll get there.
Right.
You know, and I think as a church, as organizations, we go through those hard times. I mean, I went through a time where I thought I was going to lose it all. And then about a year later, God gave us $2 million in grants. Just like that.
For the homeless
Just like
and the
that.
helpless.
And it was like, why do we have this now? God says, because I've watched you. You've been faithful with what you had. You've worked hard. Now you need this. And then He's just done more and more and more. It's crazy.
And you know, I want to speak out to our viewers because I know there are people out there that have been trying to help, trying to be a help, trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And sometimes it can be heartbreaking.
Hard.
And it can be difficult. And you have so many times people, they really come along and they get set free and then others slide back again. But your story is so encouraging. For those of you out there who are helping now and are praying, and so from there you ended up with this big, huge pantry where people from all over the churches can come and work, which is so fun. We've done that. We've done many times. We've worked in your pantry from our
God's
fellowship.
pantry.
Excuse me, God's pantry. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna watch my language, huh?
No, I mean it's.
But it's true. It is really true, and I love it that you correct because we do have to hold everything loosely and know that it all comes from Him. And so for me, it's just exciting to be able to see more and more churches involved in everything that you're doing because I know we're all one big family.
We are.
And I do want people out there who don't know Jesus as their Lord and Savior to know that He loves you And he wants us to show his love for you. He wants us to help every single person that we come across to carry his love and compassion and power. You know, he fed people, he delivered them. He was so often, even little children, you know, people would try to keep them away from him, but he'd say, "No, let them come to me." So it's such a tender heart God has for us, and he wants us to give our lives away as he gave.
And when he fed the 5,000,
yeah,
he knew that the next day they'd all desert him.
that's true. He did.
Remember the next day, the 12
Yes.
almost did too.
Yes.
Because Jesus said, he made a comment, you have to eat my body and drink my blood. He said, "Oh, Jesus, why'd you say that?" Drove them all away. But he wanted them to know that he wanted them to follow him because they believed in him,
Yes.
not because they were getting the bread.
Right.
But he still fed them the bread.
He still fed him.
You know, sometimes we'll say, people say, "Don't serve these people. You need to convert them all to God first." No, I don't. Because that's the Holy Spirit's job, is to convert somebody, not
Well, and
mine.
here's the thing that's so cool, is that every one of us needs to do what God is asking us to do. Every path is different. And if everyone in the Church of God will do what they're called to do, every job will get done.
Absolutely.
And so we've been talking about coming even alongside of you and doing a training center, some other kinds of things that would facilitate.
And we
even
need you,
more.
and you need us, and we need to
Yes.
work together.
It's so true, and our compassion can overflow because we are called to transformation of our whole valley, to repair the streets that are broken, to repair. This valley can be really difficult. The cost of living is difficult here, and we have a huge family breakdown here, and like we were talking about in the other segment, per capita, we might as well be some kind of inner city in the suburbs of Chicago. Per capita, with addiction, with the breakdown of family, with fathers leaving and not knowing how to interact with their families, and so there's just lots of work.
Yes, there is. And I had a guy a few years ago kind of set me straight one day. We had him as a guest, and he came into our church, and I said, "We don't have much of a church. We're in a bad neighborhood." And he says, "That's awesome." You know, I thought, "That's awesome." And he said, "You have an opportunity to serve so many people here."
Yes.
And I thought, "You're right. I am in the worst neighborhood in this town. That's a great place to be."
It is.
You know, don't need to go up on the hill and get away from it. Let's just stay in the middle of it.
That's right.
Because that's where God would want us. And, you know, I can give you statistics all day long about where we're located in the Rogue Valley. Lots of challenges, which means lots of opportunities.
Right.
And people are looking for hope.
And I think they've got some pictures of, speaking of hope, Hope Village. This is one of the newest. When did you actually put someone in your first little home in Hope Village? What date was that?
We
Do you
opened up
remember?
October 31 in 2017. And it was after
Look at
3
that.
years of working. Oh, that's when my wife and I
Spent the
it
first
just
one of the
went, whoop,
nights.
there it
I know,
went.
I was like, "Oh, come back."
It was gone. But, you know, I can't. When the money came, God just did amazing things. You say, "Oh, you're so smart. You had that all figured out." No, just take the next right step.
I remember because
Next
I
right
was
step.
talking with you about Hope Village before you ever got it going, and that was so on your heart. And you know, it's interesting because I've seen some other folks around the country doing some things like this. And in fact, I saw one. I think they're in maybe Texas or something like that, and
There's
they
an
have
awesome one in Texas.
Okay, and they have like almost like a training facility. There's a welding, so some of the guys, I think there's some veterans there in these homes, and they have a pantry people work in. They have a kitchen, a barbecue that people work in. They have a number of different sites around that Hope Village where people can learn to cook, and they can learn to weld, and they can learn to solder, and they have all of these really vocations that they can learn, and they're so excited. And I got to see some of those stories. Do you have some of that kind of vision for
We
Hope
need to.
Village?
You're going to come alongside and do that for us?
That's my, I would love to do something like that. Absolutely, and I
we
think there's
definitely need to.
a bunch of us that would really love to do that. And we've been kind of looking for our spot alongside
The
you.
housing crisis in the United States is huge. It's not just a problem here in our local area. It's all over the country.
It really
I was in a
is.
seminar this morning talking about it. It's not going to be solved quickly because
No.
there's not been enough housing built. The income disparity, what people make and what it now costs to live is just out of control.
It
so
really
more
is.
and more people are becoming homeless. Seniors are being pushed out of places that they thought they could live for the rest of their lives in because they keep raising the rent, but their income doesn't catch up.
Right.
So we've got a lot of people on the streets. At our Kelly shelter last year, I had at least 2 ladies that were in their 80s in a shelter.
Bless your heart.
Just ridiculous.
In a shelter, overnight emergency shelter.
Ridiculous. And then at the end of the shelter period, which the city only let me be open for 90 days, I had to push them back on the streets, and I hated that.
It's so hard, and I know many people are working with this and are concerned about this. And we were talking about our friend Dawn, and we've worked with a number of folks. We tried a bunch of different things. We had people in our fifth wheels. Everything we began to realize that we really didn't know how to. We're good
You had
intentions.
the heart, but you didn't have the knowledge.
We sure didn't. We finally did get our friend Don through a series. We put him up at hotels. We put him in fifth wheel. We had him everywhere. Bless his heart. Finally he ended up even in the hospital and in one of the nursing homes, and finally got him into a foster home, which is where. But I mean, it really took 3 months, and he was terrified. He would say, "I'm going to be on the streets tonight, and I've called the police already," and they would let him in there for an hour. They let him. He could go into the place where sort of people who are drunk dry out, and they would let him, and he would say, "Would you please drive up and down Central? I'll be walking up." And it's so awful. This man's in his 70s, and he's on the streets. He's mentally really incompetent.
Yes.
And praise God, we were able to get him into a foster care, and he is there successfully. But to have a place like this where there is a shelter, an emergency shelter, and where there are, Heather's Haven is another.
We have recovery houses. That's Heather's Haven and Harold's Haven.
Recovery houses. Rogue Retreat
And we have apartments.
What is Rogue Retreat for? What was that? That began as
just a dream around a table like this.
Dream around a table just like this.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And wasn't that your first buildings were there for people coming out of like some of the treatments, addiction treatment, or?
We started out with one men's house, a recovery house, in 1999, and by the time 2006 rolled around, we'd had many houses, and we'd made so many mistakes, and I was just really discouraged because we were working with people trying to come out of addiction because they need help.
They do,
but,
and they want to. People don't realize. No one grows up and says, "When I grow up, I want to be addicted and see my entire family devastated." I mean, nobody grows up and dreams for that.
But the Lord, just in one of those moments of clarity, He said to me, "You're not a recovery program. You're a homeless program." And I thought, well, what's the difference? Because when you say homeless, people want to help you. When you say addiction, they don't. And it's amazing how that worked. Once we changed that and our focus, everything started opening up.
Now,
the state came and brought us money.
Isn't that wonderful?
Everything
Yeah,
opened
I mean,
up.
it's not like the state isn't.
It's the same person.
Right. It is
different
the same
label.
Person. Right.
It's amazing.
So, with even the Kelly shelter, are you hoping to expand that?
Oh, can I tell my dream?
Yes, please.
Please.
Yes, please.
For 2 winters now, we've been allowed to do this Kelly shelter. And the first year, we made a lot of mistakes, and we learned from it. We came back this year with a better plan. We tripled our budget. It cost a lot of money, but we did it right. In fact, the chief of police said to us, "You're a model shelter this year." And so, awesome. So we've got now the city excited about what we're doing. We saved them a lot of money in those 3 months, but only 3 months. So my goal, my dream right now is to get a full-time shelter for either Medford or Jackson County.
Because there's the Medford Gospel
There's the Gospel Missions
and
there's
the
a Salvation
Women's.
Army has a shelter as well.
But they're
limited.
They're limited and they're full all the time.
And we want to do something a little differently than the Gospel Missions. We brought a case manager on this year.
Oh, wonderful.
And we worked with each person that was in our shelter. And in the course of 3 months, we were able to get 30 people off the streets and into some kind of housing.
Wow.
30.
So wonderful.
And we were able to get the rest of them birth certificates and ID and signed up for health plans and all kinds of things that they desperately needed.
I'm amazed how many veterans are out there who do
Lot of
not
veterans.
know the services that are available to them. And so that's some of the things that you're doing as well, is letting them know the services that are available for them. Now, here's something we didn't talk about that just occurred to me as you and I have been talking about. Our dream would be to come alongside you guys and serve in some of in some of the ways we feel like we're uniquely equipped. Are you already doing this? I just don't know about this, but have you thought about, or are you already doing a training symposium for those churches and those groups who would like to come alongside you so they know how to get started and they can say, we'd like to do this. Can you help us with the grant writing? Are you doing that already? Or is it something you would consider doing?
Well, let's just add that to the list of
Let's
things I need to be doing. Sure, why not? We need to do that. And with the Kelly Shelter this year, we did reach out to churches, and I got 3 that actually came back, and we asked for $1,000 to help us out. Our budget was $150,000 for 3 months. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
But it's not a lot when you consider what those homeless cost the community.
That's right.
The average, and I'm going to get off on my
That's okay. No, I love statistics.
Okay.
I love them.
Well, the average homeless person goes 4 times a year to an emergency room, in a hospital.
4 times a year.
At least 4. Okay.
To an ER.
And what they're doing, what they're doing in cold nights, they're going in there to make it a warming shelter. So they go in about 5 o'clock at night. Yeah. They have some kind of an issue. They'll have something. It'll be minor. They'll be there all night getting that taken care of. And then the next morning they walk back out to the streets. Well, you as a taxpayer, what's a typical emergency room visit cost?
It's expensive.
Let's just say it's $1,000. It's usually higher than that, but let's say it's 1,000. So 4 times a year would be at least $4,000 a year you're paying on an emergency room. That's just one thing. So we had 50 people off the streets for 3 months. That's a quarter of a year. So we saved 1 emergency visit for those 50 people. How much is that? $50,000. Now, that's one thing. The next thing is, in Medford, we have this illegal camping ordinance. Right. Which means that if you are sleeping on the streets in a tent, in a sleeping bag, in a blanket, in a doorway, or you're in a broken down vehicle parked on the side of the road and the police find you, they'll give you a ticket. It's a $3,000 fine.
I know about this fine.
$3,000 fine. Now,
our friend Dawn had one of those, and oh my goodness.
Right, and most of the homeless are not going to go to court and deal with that. They're scared of the police, number one, and they're not going to do it. So then they are in contempt of court. Then they get, arrested. They get arrested. They go to jail. They have probation. And it goes on and on.
Deeper and deeper.
A reporter in the Mail Tribune recently did a study on Ashland. They have the same law, $3,000 fine. So she tracked it down. What does it cost the city for each one of those tickets they give out? In 2017, Ashland gave out over 300 tickets. Okay, and it cost $1,000 a ticket to give those out by the time you track it. Right. So they spent over $300,000 on these tickets. Right. They gathered in about $500 in revenue. Now, how stupid is that? But anyway, so our 50 people in 3 months didn't get a ticket. So we saved at least 50 tickets. That's another $50,000. Right. So just between emergency room visits and tickets, we saved $100,000 for the community.
And then, of course, what I learned working with the homeless as I was working with them is that often they would commit some kind of crime, so they would get arrested so they could have some food and some shelter.
So they can get into jail where they get 3 cops and a hot. 3 hots and a cop.
Absolutely. And honestly, it just breaks my heart for this. And I'm so glad that this is coming up. And I'm very excited for those of you who are listening, who are interested in helping and want to be part. Maybe you're part of a fellowship and you're thinking, how do we come alongside?
We need help.
Yeah, Chad and his team, and we could do this. This is, often birds of a feather flock together. So churches will have certain specific strengths that they have. They're thinking, maybe we could do this. Or maybe they live in a different city and they're thinking, wow, we'd like to start down this path. How do we do that? I'm excited about this training symposium that you're going to put together.
Well, I'm excited about it too, because we need to pull together. We need
do.
to work. In Bend, Oregon, they have a shelter. It's a 365-day shelter called the Bethlehem Inn.
Yes.
Where do you take somebody? You take them to the inn. I love that thought. Take them to the inn. But the churches and the community rallies around that, and they provide the food, they provide all the stuff that needs to happen there. Wonderful. And then when they run into a homeless person, they say, hey, get in my car, I'll take you to the Bethlehem Inn.
Isn't that wonderful? Get in my car, I'll take you to the Bethlehem Inn.
Sure.
Don't you just love that?
Sure.
I love that. And I know that we need something like that here. We've been talking about that. But if we all pull together, it is my permanent and complete belief that there's a solution for every problem.
There is.
And that God has that solution. And He is excited and just thrilled to give us those solutions. Absolutely. And if we team together and begin to ask Him how to make a difference in our valley, how to truly love one another. As he said, you'll know each other, you'll know my disciples by their love for one another, their love for the people of their valley. I love this valley. I love the people of this valley. I drive my car and I'm praying, oh Lord, bless that, oh Lord, bless that part. I just pray right through on my way to wherever I'm going. And I want our viewers to know, if they're believers, you can make a difference.
Absolutely.
And everybody has maybe a different path, but maybe your path is about to coalesce with Chad's path. Maybe we can work together. Maybe you're part of a church that's been wondering how you can make a difference in your neck of the woods, in your corner of the world, and coming alongside Chad. Oh my goodness, is that all of these different, I know there's some people who maybe even want to read or help, or I know there's, is Heather Haven?
Recovery houses for women?
For women, and they can even have children in there, right?
They don't.
Is that right? They
we
don't.
have
that's not what
we
women
need
and
another
children.
one for children.
Right, for women and children.
You want to get us a house for
I would
children?
love to have a child. And you may, someone out there may
I
have
just need
a house.
a house.
Well, you know, someone may have a house and think, well, oh, I have a house that I could either
Absolutely.
donate or that we could put up there.
You know
and
what I need a house for right now? Seniors.
Seniors.
These
A house for
people that are
seniors.
over 60, 65 that get Social Security, but it's not enough to rent a house.
Right.
So they're on the streets.
Not
In our
enough to go into
shelter this
foster.
year, half of our people are over 50.
Oh my goodness.
And some
so
of them had
I know
income.
that we are talking to people here who either have access to grants or have access to money, and I know that there are many, many people who would love to give to organizations if they just knew the money really went somewhere true and safe. And I know that Chad's team, they're very transparent and they're really making a difference. I've known him for years and I've watched all of this grow my own self, and I'm really excited about it. We're committed to put some stuff together.
Pretty amazing what God does.
It really is. He really does love us. And I know that you've told, can you give us one more maybe quick story of of someone who's come through your program, is now on the other side and delivered and healthy and with housing and food?
Oh, I can tell you so many stories. You give people hope, you give them stability, and they can do incredible things. I have one lady who had an addiction problem. She ended up in the Addiction Recovery Center in Medford. So she went through some treatment, but she came out with nothing. And we're running out of time, so we better hurry. So she ended up in our Heather's Haven, which she did great.
Okay.
Then she moved into one of our apartments from there. She did great. Then she moved into another one of our apartments, did great. Now she's out in her own place in the community, got her family back, her kids. She just did from step to step to step.
Right. And I know some people that
keep
that
doing
happened.
the next right thing.
We can do it. We can do it together. Let's work together. Let's love together. Let's love one another in this valley. We can do it. We can absolutely make a difference. Get a hold of Chad, get a hold of us, E-Force Fellowship, whatever. Let's love this valley together and make a huge difference.